Wow. Ah, okay. Oh, as I left this entire time, I changed it around to be like, okay, use default RMTP, use this, use that, use the other thing. Man, YouTube is giving me fits today. Well, you know what? If it just accepted me being here, time I popped out chat and returned to behaving like I was actually streaming. And as always, I prefer to set it to live chat. Probably if it makes me jump through too many hoops, I'll lose interest and leave it at just the default setting. Previous time, I was trying to start streaming, and it wasn't going to let me do it, and it failed, but it did try to do the please enable ads. If YouTube is not able to do this properly, I do not think I want to also let it play ads. I'm going to not let it play ads instead. So let's see. I suppose I could set it to stream health. I don't know. Anywho, we're back, and you're still listening to Woo off of this computer, just on a slightly different stream feed setup than it was before. Also, I'm going to try to set it up so that I can get rolling faster again. I've been doing it in OBS in such a way that it had a tendency of making me fill out the entire form every time that I tried to go live, and I've been suffering through that this entire time. But when YouTube gets wonky, that is extremely unpleasant. So I don't want to go there. Anywho, here's our strict low pass. Here is full band added to it. And what I'm wondering is whether I can dial in a degree of band that sounds more like, I don't know, the Moog filter when set to very resonant. Because it feels to me like these amplitudes aren't exactly the same. Like there's somewhere between here and here that might actually sound good. Well, if it was exactly 0.25, that might have a semblance of meaning something. Yeah, it seems like that's just adding noise. That sounds fairly decent. I can take the volume down for more experiments. I just had it cranked up so that I could hear what the noise was doing. And then as soon as the volume was up, that killed the stream somehow. So I don't understand why that happened at all. Now I'm wondering whether the whole thing could sit inside sine. But maybe not. Maybe not. I think my next thing to do is try one of these other things. Like, for instance, I initially discovered the sound of this on Alien Kittens. So that'll play at full volume. Probably nothing much to correction here. So this is again at a lower volume as long as Reso is low, and I don't have it correcting. But what I was observing was I was hearing something pleasing about the way that the reverb came. Here's default. Oh yeah, no, that's obvious. Okay, so furthermore, fooling around with this, which is the condition under which I was discovering it the first time, I found from fooling around with the noise that bringing inverted saturated band in is causing it to bring up high frequencies more than it was. Like, band brought in high frequencies. Saturated band well, that's going to be having it cancel out less when the amplitude is high. But band is a different roll-off than low pass. Band is shallower. Low pass is a little bit steeper, but has a funny sort of, it runs out of steam. So effectively what's happening with the reverb sound in this is that it's interacting with the way that band brings a shallower cutoff. And I can believe that that would be the case. It's just doing something kind of special in there. Like, I leave it to this, and it sounds quite shallow. And I can't hear the reverb very well. Here's what I was doing before. Here's the experiment I was doing earlier. So that's interesting, I guess. even steeper. So it sounds kind of flat here. This is not something that I particularly like. And band is at extremely low amounts, but the sound is still taking the saturation. So I think what I'm looking to do here is dial in the right amount of inverted band and figure out what level of saturation it needs to have so that we can have that really aggressive resonant point. And I don't think I necessarily need to compensate for that. I tried doing that and I was like, yeah, that seems like the right thing, but I don't know if I actually measured it based on whether it was just an idea that I was going to try or whether it was delivering sound that I liked. Furthermore, it's possible that I need to compensate this amount of band being brought in either before or after the saturation. If I bring it in before the saturation, then the total amplitude of everything is going to have more of an effect, and that might be exactly right. If I saturate band before bringing it in negative, like negative sign band, if I do that and then volume compensate for it, what's going to happen is the saturation point goes lower and lower down in the amplitude. So first setup means louder band gets, the more it saturates, up to a maximum point. Latter one means band saturates at some point relative to how loud we're combining it. I'm going to try the former. So what I mean by that, and that will involve correcting this as well. So if this works, we're doing, let's move the negative on this as well. We're not doing this correction at all, but we're doing this correction inside that calculation. So it's going to have a harder and harder time hitting that sign point. And at this stage, we're finding out to what extent do I bring in band as a corrective factor. Starting at quiet parts, it's only going to bring that in. And then the louder and louder we push it, the more and more it's going to saturate, which will cause it to subtract less from low. Hit build. Let's see what we got. And if this is interesting, I'll go back to the noise. We'll see what the noise does. I keep having to glance over and see if the stream died again. Oof. This life, man. It's crazy. I still haven't got that phone call from earlier. And no that. Excuse me. And we're still not correcting for volume. Okay, that's loud enough. That'd be full crank. So I was hearing a sort of Buklabongo kind of coloration in there. We've got it good and loud now. However, I determined that turning it up all the way was maybe more of that than I needed. So let's try bringing part of it in. I started at 0.25. That gave me slightly more detail around that synth. Is there an optimum amount of detail around that synth? Yeah, because that's kind of not optimal. Too much? Not enough? Maybe half is right. I feel like I'm getting a better sense of that reverb, and that's kind of what I was shooting for first time around. Yeah. I feel like I'm almost willing to guess that 0.5 is the correct answer. I feel like I'm hearing the reverb around it in the way that I wanted, which is from before, from last time. We've got super loud resonances that way. And we are able to reduce it to nothing but a resonant peak. So that's cool. Also, what does it sound like relative to the normal version if we do that? Okay. At 1, other frequencies are interfering. At 0, it sounds bland. Yeah, at 0.5, we've still got that ring there. It feels a little bit more solid, and we've got just a hint of sort of the vibe of the background sound in there. Like we've got an acoustic resonance happening, but there's just the faintest hint of the full range of everything else happening. I've got the speakers cranked way up. I'm pretty happy with this. We've got some low peeking through. We've got enough highs peeking through. And I feel like the way they're combining is correct. Here's our no reso. New synth filter. It's a variation on state variable, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. That got the vibe. That got the vibe I was after. I wonder if I have my Zoxbox waveforms in here. So 0.5 is what I want for that. And the rest of it seems about the same. So it's going to be that. However, not for this part. For this part up here, that I'm going to add the temp to. So it's going to be that. It's going to be, let's see. Negative sign band times 0.5. Low plus minus is just the same as low minus sign, so we'll just do that. Bada boom. And then the rest of this gets to be just the way it is. And then we have to put these in. Have to make sure the rest of this is the way I had it. F is Q, maybe it's not. But now it is. And in this case, we've got out is per MC divided by square root of Q. So this is going to boost quite intensely indeed. Meaning that the bit we do here is putting this back. The rest of this is basically normal. Yeah, I think that's it. Meaning that if I comment this all out, it won't get in the way. Bada boom. Source from the book, slightly modified because the book didn't make complete sense. It made a certain amount of sense, but it was failing to some extent. And then here is the Airwindows version, except for we don't have temp implemented yet. So right now, without the interpolation, here's the Airwindows version. And we're going to need to calculate these things on the fly. Fortunately, that's pretty simple. For fun, let's make this slightly more articulate. Oh, we don't get to do it at all in scope? Now we do. And we'll literally call that reso. So we don't need the comment. And then we're going to add A and B versions because we're going to smooth it. But we can do this calculation only once every buffer and then just interpolate into it. In fact, we can probably just jump in and do that now. I don't see why not. Meaning we're going to have a 3-knobber. And we're going to do this. And we got to blank those. Not too much trouble. Just up here. And then these go like this. Ooh. Whoa up, I should smooth the output volume as well. People might be modulating that like crazy. Wouldn't blame you. Out A and out B. Actually, why would those be 0? What am I doing? Let's go and find default settings for this thing. I certainly don't know. Oh, default settings appear to be already okay. So 0.5, 0.5, and 1. There we go. Now we got to do a smoothing thing. Thank you everybody for refinding the stream, by the way. I apologize for YouTube kicking me off of the internet. I think it didn't like the noise of my filter. There. Now we've got a set of things that we need to use temp to interpolate among. So I've got other code that does that. I don't necessarily need to think it up. Classically, when we were doing like D-low pass, Z-low pass 2, it contains the code. So similarly here, we've got all of this stuff in A and B versions, does all the same things. And then once we're into here, we do the same temp thing, and then all of them follow this pattern. So we are going to have to instantiate those things, though. But so it'll be freak A and freak B. And then we just repeat that. Oops. Oh no, we're not doing not yet. Out. Out, out, damn spot. And we could also play with those consts as well. We could do that. This is a thing that one can do to help out the compiler and tell it, hey, we can catch this in some useful place. We'll see whether it does anything nice to help. And of course, we can't do const double input sample because we are changing it. But this stuff isn't necessarily being changed. In fact, maybe we don't even need to have that. Well, no, reso B is getting updated. But this, not so much. Oh, wait. I'm outsmarting myself. Check this out. We're not defining these here. We're defined them already. If we define these here, we're breaking it. Let's not break it. Let's assign to the things that are supposed to be kind of ongoing. Let's see if it builds. It built. Let's see if it runs. Again, back to our alien kittens. I had been listening to the reverb as something I wanted to hear. We default at 0.5. So what we're going to see here is as we crank up the resonance, the amplification is going to jump up. So no reso. We got this, meaning that it can boost a little bit. It's overdriving a little bit when we go into the bass, but mostly it's pretty clean. Then as we increase reso, It sounds like it's getting quieter, but not as much as you think, because the resonant peak has gotten louder. See, it's about 3 dB up. So this is balanced and set up in such a way to sound nice and act nice. And we end up peaking at about 3 dB. You could put a distortion in the chain, but no matter what we do, we're not actually peaking by 1,000,000 dB. But if we didn't do this, this all would be very, 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 very quiet. And of course I got an output pad there, so we can turn everything down if we want. It's nicely smoothed. There's no clicks even on this bassy stuff. And I can hear my reverb in the background. I'm pretty happy with how this came out. Let's see if I can find that Zoxbox sound that I know about. I'm not sure whether I've got it in mono or stereo. Looks like that is stereo. But I can simplify it a bit. We'll just do the one-channel version. And let's normalize it to make it as intense as it can be. Okay, here is some acidy Zox noises. So that's a lot more natural sounding than the Bezier EQ. See, the neat thing about a Zoxbox and its filters, this is something that was pretty well noticed by Plastic Man, by Richie Houghton, is if you run stuff into a Zoxbox filter and turn it up, and handle it the right way, it honks in this extremely colorful way that projects extremely loud. It projects right through the rest of your synthetic stuff. And I'm hearing that capacity here. Ooh, there we go. So that is the kind of sonority that you would get out of a, and I say Zoxbox, but we're talking a 303 here. So if you have a 303 and you ramp up the resonance to the point where it's this extreme, it will be able to project as much as this. At just the right frequency. Oh, and we are still peaking too hot. So yeah. If you are doing a Zoxbox escapade such the way that Plastic Man was doing, you might just have it set up so that as you fool with the repeating cycle, it might excite the filter into a honk like that, and then you'd use the honk to like run into a reverb maybe. I do feel that Richie Houghton had like a soldering iron going and was fooling around with his synths, and including fooling around with the 303s because he got them doing things that were not standard 303 behavior. And I believe one of the things that he would be doing was ramping up the resonance to the point where it would be trying to just ring like this. And then as you turn up the knob, it starts to happen. You start to get that overtone. And as you can see, I've got the output turned down all the way there. And it's producing a pleasing sort of 303-ish resonance on the edge of that. So this seems cool. I'm happy where this went. I'm going to take a moment and throw another log in the fire while leaving it doing this. Here we go. And so you should be able to have it set up like this and then fuss with it. I call that a pretty natural sounding filter. And a normal volume. Oop, changed it. What's Sawtooth AF? What's this? Not sure what's going on there. Okay, we appear to have inverted phase on this sawtooth. Alrighty then, I guess we have that. Time to see what that sounds like as just a note into the filter. That is 100% a DAW sawtooth, nothing more. Nice. Nice on the extreme highs too. Well, we're at it. If we are making it this resonant, this is what we get out. Seems legit. I think that's what you'd expect. I think it popped my ears a bit too, but there's no harm in that. No harm in that. What else have we to play with here before going on to regular work? We've got some drums. Drums into a filter. Oop. Huh. I guess I gotta pay more attention to that then. Yeah. Got a slight issue here. Let's try that again. So I don't want that to happen, whatever it was. And I'm curious as to what would have caused that. What if we start it now? Okay. Yep. That caused a problem. So what do I need to dial back to make it not do that anymore? Something needs to be not quite that extreme. I'm glad that I stumbled across that because that needs fixing. So Reso was at 0. Reso was at 0 and this is at 999. Does it still break? Yep. What if frequency was at 1, but reso was not? Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Didn't like that. Didn't like that one bit. Although you can get control of it very quickly. But it still spat out a crazy result. I wonder if I can just clip the outputs and have it behave. Or put in a clipping stage. So hear me out. We just did an ultimate clipper. It's called Clip Only 3. You're supposed to be able to just drop it into a thing and have it make stuff behave itself. It'd be good. So if we were to do that, so this reduces the effectiveness of having this be a filter that people like Bacon Paul can just immediately include in their stuff. Because this is making it more complicated than it was. But it may also eliminate that problem. Just throw that. We don't include this float 32 as it runs in pure bypass because it's no longer doing that thing. So that can be taken out of that comment, can't it? It's not even true for the VST 64-bit bus version. And here's where this bit comes from. I have not yet ported this to VST2, so that's going to be a little more cumbersome, but then I will only have to do it once, and it'll apply it there and in Editorial. And I'm going to duplicate all of this stuff and see whether I can't take care of that. Like, it might do a little click, but it would only be a brief chirp. If all goes well. If not, I just wasted my time trying to do this, but who's to say that's wrong? Surely I can waste my time any way I wish. This needs to be ported. It's not ported yet. That goes there. And then this chunk, which we arrived at through long and painful hacking, being the little compressed chunk that can be dropped into anything. That can go after this stuff. And now we have a high quality output clipping that sounds like reality. Let's see how these things combine. It built. So here's how we broke it last time. By doing what would normally expect to not be a problem. Freak all the way up, reso all the way down. Does it break and die, or is it fine? Something between. It popped, but then it didn't. Okay, did this take the algorithm out completely? It's still showing not a number. It's just not showing a distortion. If we stop it and then restart. Okay. Well, that sounds nice, but I don't like that pop and then it going dead. Surely there's something I can do to stop that. Yeah, I popped it. These drums are capable of driving it into no worky. We're at 96K. How close do you have to get? Ah, that's interesting. Alrighty, you can do this, apparently, and then it dies. So I do not know why it would be specifically drums causing that, but maybe it's something to do with the hats. And these are not that loud, but hats are still throwing a lot of high frequencies, and that was high frequency craziness I just heard. We were able to stop it, and it's not actually blowing any speakers, and it's clipping before nasty things happen. In fact, I bet it was louder before I put in the clip only. But still. So next thing we do, since it's set up in such a way that it now is able to survive being intermodulated, is what happens when we're at 44.1K. So far, so good. So far, so good. We can probably still blow it this way, but what does that mean? I think it went to 9.8 something. Yep. .982 is the hard limit. Is that different if this is normalized or louder? This might be amusing. I believe I will be hitting it with stored over. So this is probably storing the floating point values, and only if I save it does it actually clip them. Now let's see what it does. Not a problem. But as soon as I move to 983, yeah, that's my hard limit. $96K, apply the amplification again. And let's see if 982 is still holding it. 982, 983. Doesn't go quite that hard. So let's go for a safety factor. 981 is the new hard limit to how far you can go. We got very close. Remember how we dialed that in using like noise and feedback and stuff? Here's why that mattered. And we really did get very close to sort of the perfect setting. So that will give me my new value. That is how far it may go, under whatever circumstances we're using. And it seems like 44.1 is the most sensitive. So now we just come up with what that value actually is. 0.28 times 0.981, 1.25568. You know what? I'm just going to round that down to 125 and we'll call it a day. I think we can be even safer than that. 1.25 should be adequate to keep anything from freaking out and blowing up, if my calculations are correct. Let's build the new version and see what we got. What I don't know is whether the distortion is even really what I need, because we managed to sustain it in such a way that it is not broken and hosed, but that doesn't mean oh, for heaven's sake. No, don't save that. That doesn't mean I necessarily want to keep the built-in clipping unless it's awesome. Might be better just to leave that to subsequent plugins. Yeah, a little question about mastering too that I see. I don't know. Do you have side channel stuff in your hip-hop beats? Do you have side content? If everything is mono, it will do nothing. But if you have stuff that is in the side, and you're doing things that will end up on a big PA system, there might be a place for it. Back into the breach. Let's see what we got. We're going to immediately go into, let's break it and see what it do. 1, 0, and 1. Okay, didn't expect that. We're close to functional. If we have reso in there, then it's fine. Maybe reso needs to not be literally 0 either. Oh, it still didn't like that. How about reso can't be any smaller than 0.01? That's close to flaming out. I'm honestly not sure what its problem is with this, but I do see, does it kick in before sound happens? Maybe. Well, one way to find out. That's not the right one. And that didn't listen to what I said. We have a setting here. Can you honor it, please? Please, please. No? Are we inserting it at the end or something stupid like that? What's going on? Well, I know I can insert a tone and silence that, so let's try that. Insert, we'll call it 1 second of that. It's not counting in seconds is what's going on there. We must be counting in samples. That's the only thing that I can figure out that would explain it. Alrighty, if we are inserting in samples rather than seconds, tenth of a second. Cool. Okay, we're inserting in samples, not seconds. Now what do we got? Does it do this on silence, or does it only do this when it gets audio? Back to the fully bugged out version. Huh. I should be able to see when it's kicking in. Yeah, it did that on 0. Okay. So that's interesting. We can't have that. And for funsies, let's just find out what happens if we're not starting on silence. It still did it. It still did it. And if we have some reso, it's fine. And we just pulled this back. Excuse me. That's frustrating. So what does it think it's doing? I've got about 2 hours of stream left. I've been going since, what, 10, 11, something like that. We're going to see if we can get this crazy thing to behave. I do wonder what's up with this. What if I start it in a loud noise? Does that help? No. And this is at 96K. It was even more sensitive on maybe I just step it back until it behaves. Like if I don't do this times 1.25 or more, all that's going to happen is its highest setting is no longer the Nyquist frequency. And that's not necessarily a big problem. Like at 44.1K, Nyquist is not very high. So let's keep stepping it back. Let's 1.225. Because we now know that this drum setting is able to make it flake out. So if and it's doing it even on silence, and that's weird and creepy, but that's probably also why we got that, because I believe this introduction is all 0, is all silence. And if that's capable of freaking it out, then we need to know about it and probably pull back the boosting that we've got. How much? That much is apparently fine. And then reso is fine. It honestly doesn't add that much gain. Is the sickest sounding plugin? Probably that Bezier filter one. The Z acid filter. That one's quite ridiculous. Okay, so all well and good. I'll set it to that again. Now let's try it on, I don't know, Alien Kittens. We're going to see if all of these start up without crashing. That starts up without crashing. How about Discord? That starts up without crashing. But what does it do if there is silence? There is silence. That's definitely silence. We can turn it to silence. And it started up just fine. I think we got there. So what have we got that we can run into the filter and then saturate into the distortion and see if that's anything good or whether it's not actually good? I'm a little tired by now, but I'm doing my best. I think not these. We could try the Zox and just normalize it. Normalize that, then let's filter it and let's see if it distorts on output. It's okay, but I don't know if that's that much better than just letting it be unconfined. Yeah, I feel like having fixed the bug with the drum sound, I'll double check that the bug for the drum sound is gone, which I have to do by making this go away and then not saving this. So here's the drum sound that bugged. If we set it up to bug and then play, it's okay. If we convert this down to 44.1K, and then set it in such a way that it would bug if it was ready to bug, it's not bugging. Cool. This doesn't need clip only 3 on the end of it. Though most of the time it's not doing any harm, mind you, but this does not need clip only 3 on the end of it. We're going to take it back off. The lack of clip only 3 was not its problem. Because essentially what happened there was I was wondering if it was going to control itself and then not be like it was going to continue to be able to play. But it turned out it was that setting being too close to Nyquist that was doing it. And since that doesn't have to be a problem, we can have this all be a little cleaner. And you can throw it into clip only or clip only 3 afterwards, perhaps after doing a shift in a bits gain to it, and maybe we'll even do that for funsies. But that can be a separate plugin. It doesn't have to come out like this. Two-row. You'd be surprised, Jonathan. One of the things I read about, like we recently lost the producer who was involved in like Tribe Called Quest and a bunch of other stuff. He passed away. And one of the things that he talked about in an interview was in recording like low-end theory and so on for Tribe Called Quest. One of the things that was happening is he tended to when recording their stuff, he tended to not use a bunch of reverb. Everything was tending to be rather dry, and everything tended to be very centered as well. It's not unusual for hip-hop to be very centered. It's not really the home stereo listening stuff. It's club-style listening stuff. When you're in the club, you do not want any of the important parts of the sound not to be there if somebody is standing only next to one speaker and not the other. So Grenz is on the right track there as far as taking pains for having it be more mono. And certainly in the club, people do enjoy, I mean, even then it depends. Like if we're talking about old school hip hop, that's not bright. It's not. The old samplers were not bright. It's very obvious. They are sort of band limited and they're sort of dark and crunchy, and that's part of the sound. It's similar to how if I play my Bastel Castles, like the stuff that I was playing when I went and made coffee, that stuff is certainly not an old school sampler, but it's a primitive little electronic device. And all of it plays through with extremely dark edges to it, even though it's a chip. It's a digital chip spitting out sort of 1-bit kind of stuff. But even though it's doing that, there's only so fast it can slew. And for that reason, it's making this distinctly dark sound. Same thing for the old samplers and things. They did not have the brightness that Akai got up to later when they started going into higher sampling rates and having better converters and stuff. There's a worse is better factor for some of that stuff. So yeah. It's a genre thing. It's all a genre thing. You never can be quite sure exactly what you're going to be looking for in terms of working with genres and how that stuff is going. Let's see. 001. Yeah, that seems about right. Since this is called the Torah, I'm including a variation in the textbook code for this, so you can have the normal SVF on tap. Maybe I don't have these comments in here. Or should I say this, because this is the only one that's actually meant to be a comment. So if we uncomment this entire block, we don't actually have all of those parameters. I could simply replace them with... Yeah, let's try this. We've got A, B, and C. C is the output volume. So if all this stuff got commented out, then this is the only bit. So I'll give it a little space, seeing as this is the dezippering. That would be sassy. Shall I? Tempting. Because if I was going to be well behaved, I would do this. Because this is all the code. But to make it look even tinier than that, I can do this. And it's still basic. We're fine. I do wonder whether I should dial this back even further. Oh no!